Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone see the slides? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So let's start our class today. So we were discussing on the different on the unit one, the part one. We were actually going on part two. Basically, we were understanding the different substrates of the fermentations, what are the major elements. So in that particular topic, we were discussing on the bioproducts, its classifications, and the fermentation. We have just started discussing what is the fermentations and what are the different ranges of the processes. So in the today's class, we will mostly discuss the very basic overview on what is the fermentation. Okay, what are the main products of the fermentations, and we will see that how the fermentation processes have was actually there in the prehistoric times, and then how the technological advancements took place uh, to as the advancements in terms of the reactors, in terms of the technology or the processes or the products that are being produced by through the fermentation processes. So that led to the technological advancements. So how these technological advancements have taken place, and then we will look into. So this will give you a basic overview on the topics of the fermentations, and those topics we are going to actually discuss in details in our subsequent classes. So we looked into, so we have classified all the bioproducts into three types, like we have done in the last class, where we have the high value, low volume products. Then we have the middle value and middle volume products. Okay, and on the third we have the low value and the high volume products. Okay, so these were several classifications of the products we looked into. So that, and we will look into examples of some of the techniques, some of the products, like in the unit 2 we will be looking into, for example, the biofuel productions, the alcohol fermentation and all those things. Then we will look into, for example, the pharmaceuticals, like the production of the different antibiotics such as the penicillin and such. Okay, we will also look into some of the production of the biomaterials, some of the biopolymers. Okay, and also some of the, in the terms of the pharmaceuticals, we are also going to look in the unit 4, the production of, for example, the vaccines, which is also the like the in which the biochemical engineering or biotechnology has played a significant role. So we are going to take those examples. But before that, we will be looking into a generalized overview on the what is the basics of the fermentation and how do we select the different media, different microbial organisms. Okay, how do we scale up fermentation process from a lab scale to an industrial scale processes, and we will address those things. So these are some of the byproducts, the bioproducts that are being actually developed in the industrial scale, especially. Okay, because most of the some of the products or major of the products which are produced in the fermentation processes need to be scaled up to the industrial scale. Some of them are like the biohydrogen, for example, the body creams, the bioplastics, the biocomposites, biofoams, and the biorubbers. And we know that we need to have this type of materials because whatever, suppose the petroleum plastics that you are using in our daily life applications, the chemical-based products, they tend to have issues regarding the environmental sustainability, the biodegradability, and they tend to accumulate and they are causing, for example, the pollution, the increased production of the greenhouse gases, and so on. So we need to have this such type of bio products or the bio waste products, and they tend to have, for example, lower gas emissions, or at least they have the carbon neutrality. So I guess everyone knows the about the carbon footprint, right? So overall, if you see, because most of the bioproducts are we are getting it from, suppose, the fermentation routes using the microorganisms or some of the agricultural biomass and so on. So if you see the overall carbon cycle in that case for this type of bioproducts, so it is the overall carbon cycle is neutral. Okay, so we always want to develop any processes which is carbon neutral. We don't want any carbon dioxide or carbon gases, carbon monoxide, these formations of this type of gaseous products, and they are emitted to the environment. Okay, so that is some of the environmental issues that it creates. Okay, so some of the products, suppose, for example, the biohydrogen, the biocosmetics, the bioplastics, biocomposite, biofoams, and these are actually my area of research, and generally work on the development of this type of biofuels, the biohydrogens, which are, for example, in the fuel cells. So fuel cell, if you see, I am sure everyone must have seen or have anyone have come about across the term called the EVs. So EVs are nothing but the electric vehicles. Okay, so these electric vehicles are using this type of fuel cells. Okay, which are being which is the source for the power generations. And so these fuel cells, for example, the electric buses and all those high in which you need a high energy output. So those type of vehicles, they use the EVs. Those type of EVs use the fuel cell as the main component. So similarly, like we have the biocosmetics. For example, you have the sunscreens, right? So sunscreen on that bottle, you have everyone has, I guess, have seen the SPF, right? Written on that. So what is the SPF? The SPF is the sun protection factor. So most of the chemicals that were used till date was like mostly aromatic compounds. Suppose some of the benzene ring-like structure, and these aromatic compounds both have the harmful effects on the skin as well as overall the production of these type of chemicals are toxic. So what we can do as a cosmetics, you can produce some of the bio-based chemicals such as the lignin. So lignin is one of the component which is present in the plants, for example. So you can produce the lignin, okay, and that lignin can be used into this type of creams, and they generally have a very good sun protection factor or the SPF value. So I'm sure everyone must have come across this SPF value. If you see this sunscreen, it will come the values of like SPF 30 or SPF 50. So this value actually tells you that how much means the blockage of the UV rays. So UV also have three types, like you have UVA, UVB, and UVC. So how much this type of chemical, this particular cream can block? Okay, so that gives some values based on that. So I'm not going to detail. So this is some of the products that are also being produced by the fermentation routes. And then obviously you have the bioplastics. So some of the bioplastics such as so if you see the most of the plastics in our petroleum base, they are made with the polyethylene, terephthalate, polypropylene, so on. But some of the bioplastics like PLA, the PLA name is called polylactic acid. Another bioplastics called PHB, it is called polyhydroxybutyrate. Okay, so these are the polymers which are directly produced by the microorganisms. Okay, and or the bacteria through fermentations, and then we can prepare some of the biocomposites. We add some of sort of nanomaterials or bio nanomaterials, and we prepare the composites, and then they have, for example, the good properties similar to the petroleum based plastic. But you may ask that why is those type of plastics not used in the daily life application. So one of the issues, the major issues that is hindering their applications in the daily products is the cost. Okay, so they generally tend to have the very high cost. However, in some other parts of the country, other parts of the world, in Europe and USA and those places, still people have already started using this type of degradable and sustainable materials because of the consumer awareness and people are more into using the sustainable materials into their daily life applications. So this is some of the products of the Maya materials which are very important in the industrial point of view. And then we look into the definition of this type of low value, high volume products. What are the factors on which their cost depends upon? And then we have the high value, low volume products, and we took the example of the human insulin. So we found out that their cost and overall value doesn't depend upon the initial substrate or the equipment cost of setting up the plant, for example, but major costs come from the R&D part, where the research and development part is used where to develop particular strains. Okay, like in the case of the human insulin production, we saw that a particular gene from the pancreas is being taken and is being modified into a bacteria called the E. coli. Okay, and after that, once we have the genetically engineered bacteria, that particular bacteria has to be grown in a particular fermenter, and then the insulin is being produced, for example. So the overall cost of doing this R&D, okay, in this process actually, and developing the final product actually adds to the overall cost of this process. Okay, so a lot of research and development has been carried out in this production of the human insulin, and after that, down the line, 10, 20 years, whatever insulin we are getting in form the injection as a medicine is the output of the R&D. And R&D, it requires a lot of time to get the final product being developed, right? So the expenditure that is being carried out during this R&D adds to the overall cost of the product. Okay. So similarly, there is another type of biochemicals called interferons, and these interferons are sometimes used for the like to treat the cancers and also for the viral infections. So we look into some of the examples like leukemia, melanoma, AIDS-related diseases. So these interferons are used, and we will look into we will discussing these two examples, the insulin and the interferons, that how these biochemicals are produced and how they are being used for treatment of the, for example, the cancers, or how they are actually affecting our immune system. Okay, so along with these two examples, we are also going to talk about this called vaccines, how the vaccines are produced, especially in the terms of this, in terms of the like the for the treatment of the COVID or the coronavirus, that how these vaccines are designed, what are the different vaccines, and what is the difference in the characteristic of each and every vaccine that is produced by the different manufacturers. So we'll look into those things in detail. And let us start with our discussions where we ended yesterday. So we discussed like what is a fermentation, and we found out that fermentation is nothing but a process in which the microorganisms such as the bacteria, yeast, fungi, or any other microorganisms, maybe it will be algae. So algae, is used for the production of the biodiesel. So any microorganisms, they have their own metabolic process or a biochemical pathway. Okay, and that metabolic process or the biochemical pathway, either you can take it as a natural one, that you have you take, for example, an algae which is producing the biodiesel. So you can not a algae cannot produce a biodiesel directly, right? So algae will produce some sort of a fatty acid. So it is a natural process of that algae to produce some sort of a fatty acid. Okay, or you can have a genetically engineered one. So you have when you are engineering a particular microorganism. So what you are doing is you are able to tune the quality and the type of the products you want to produce. So you can actually engineer the metabolic process. So that particular field is called metabolic engineering, or you can genetically engineer one particular microorganisms to produce your desired product. So there are different techniques how we can genetically engineer the microorganisms, or how we can do the metabolic engineering. Depending upon that, you can tune the production of your desired or targeted chemicals. And so this requires the science of understanding how you can do this type of modifications. And then you require to means to grow this particular modified or the natural microorganisms under a controlled condition of a bioreactor. So in the bioreactor, what we have different types of design and different types of conditions. So each and every microorganisms require a particular type of temperature, okay, or the pH conditions, as well as the suppose the shear force. So and all those things are there. So there are several parameters, and so we need to, in the particular bioreactor, we need to maintain a controlled conditions, okay, and a controlled environment in which actually will promote the growth of these microorganisms, and when they are growing, they are going to produce this type of value-added products, right? So this is what the overall fermentation is, okay. And as a biochemical engineer, or as an engineer working in development of any biological processes, you have to understand all these 4 5 aspects, okay, and you have to connect those aspects to develop a particular product, okay. So this is what the overall fermentation is. And if you see when you are doing a fermentation in a, for example, a bioreactor, it can produce a different type of products. Okay, so one of the products can be the production of the microbial cells. So when, for example, when you are growing a particular, when suppose in a reactor, you are growing the microorganisms, okay, in the growth media. So as we already discussed, like if you have a bioreactor, you will always add some sort of a growth media or the nutrient media, which will be the source of food for the microorganisms. Okay, and when you inoculate, so inoculation means you add a particular quantity of the bacteria or the bacteria culture into this growth media. And what happens when it goes into this growth media, it gets the adequate temperature, pH, as well as adequate food source or the carbon source for its growth. And what it happens, it undergoes cell division, and it going to produce a higher cell concentration. So it is going to increase its population within that bioreactor. So sometimes when this population of this type of microorganisms are increasing, they are actually called the biomass. Okay, so because why it is called a sort of a biomass? Because when the cells are growing, it grows depending upon the cell types. It grows in some sort of a pellets or a lumps. Okay, and you can see depending upon the type of the bacteria or the yeast or the fungi. It is like a semi-solid. It's like a solid particles, or a jelly-like particles, or some sort of a biomass. Okay, that is floating as it grows within the bioreactor. So some of the products of the fermentation, it can be these microbial cells or the biomass. So whatever the biomass or the microbial cells are being produced, this is itself the product. Okay, so in that case, the first product can be either the microbial cells or the biomass. So in that particular product, what you will trying to do in that bioreactor, you will try to increase the concentration of the cells as high as possible. Okay, so you will tune the parameter in such a way that that high concentration of these cells are produced. Okay, and then because that cells is your main targeted product. So what are the example of such type of fermentation in which the biomass is the main product? Is so some of the examples are the baker's yeast. Okay, the yeast for the single cell proteins and some of the probiotics. Okay, so so the baker's yeast is used in the bread industries, for example. So it is an additive yeast which is required by these bread industries. Then yeast for the single cell protein. So single cell protein, if anyone knows, so it is widely used as an food additive. Okay, so in this it is mostly used, for example, for the as a feedstock to the animals. Okay, also it is used in the case of because they have a very high rich in the protein content, so they are used as a food for the astronauts who go for the space exploration and so. So I will show you probably one of the photos of one of the cookies which was developed. So it was some sort of biscuit which was developed using the single cell protein. So we are working on one of the projects on developing a rich high protein content food which can be used in a very harsh environmental conditions. So we developed one sort of a single protein based cookie which was using some sort of a microorganism, a particular yeast. Okay, was grown, and then it was added as an additive, and a edible cookie was developed. Also, in case of the probiotics, some of the milk-based products, like you have the yogurt, curd, and all those things. So those for those type of products, we require this type of microbial cells of the biomass as the main product. Then we have, for example, the enzymes. So some of the enzymes, now the enzymes either can be intercellular or the extracellular. So what is the intracellular and extracellular? So intracellular means if you see the intercellular, so as the name suggests, that means it is intra. Intra means inside the cell, or it can be, for example, the extracellular. So what is the extracellular? The extracellular means, as the name suggests, that these particular enzymes are, for example, secreted outside the cells. Okay, so because depending upon for example, if the enzyme is located inside the cell, okay, and if the enzyme is located outside the cell, So depending upon the intercellular and extracellular products, we have to design your, for example, the downstream processings accordingly. So we have seen in the earlier classes that what is the downstream processing. So these are the steps or the unit processes that is required to extract or purify the product, right? So in the case if the product is intercellular, you have to break out the cells, right? And then you have to remove the cellular debris from these enzymes, and then you have to extract the enzyme, and then you have to purify to increase the yield as well as the quality. But if this particular enzyme is secreted outside the cells, so then you can separate, suppose these cells and these enzymes simply via filtration or the centrifugation approach, and these enzymes then can be, for example, this yield and the quality can be improved by the other processes. So you can see the difference in the unit operations or the downstream processing for the two products. So it is always important to understand that what is the type of the product, either it's intercellular or the extracellular. So the some of the microbes will produce the enzymes, and enzymes will be actually the your product. And some of the examples are the amylase, protease, catalase, glucose oxidase, and so on. So, for example, the glucose oxidase is widely used in the if you see, if you have seen that the medical devices that is used to measure the blood glucose. So where you can see where you can click your finger, and there are some devices which measures the concentration of the glucose or the sugar in your body. And it is, I think, in some of your homes we will have that type of sensors. So those particular biosensors, they use a enzyme which is the glucose oxidase. Okay, so glucose oxidase actually what it does it's one of the enzyme which oxidizes the glucose. As the name suggests, the glucose oxidase. So oxidase is a enzyme which oxidize specifically the glucose. And why the enzymes are very important or have the advantage is because of the specificity. So glucose oxidase will only oxidize the glucose substrate. So whenever you are taking those in those it means in those biosensors, the glucose biosensors, you have this particular enzyme coated onto the, for example, the paper substrate. Okay, and you add, for example, your blood. What it does is it's convert the glucose that is present in the blood to gluconic acid. So it oxidizes the glucose to the gluconic acid, and when it oxidizes, we have the sensing element that is present. Okay, and that senses that how much change is there, and depending upon the concentration of the glucose, it is actually giving you an output. Okay, so you can see that glucose oxidase, for example, is required for the production of this type of biosensors that are used in the biomedical applications. So then we have the production of the microbial metabolites. So some of the metabolites are actually being produced by the microbes. So we have seen there are two types of metabolites, right? The primary and the secondary metabolites, and that metabolites are produced depending upon the growth pattern. Either it is produced in the log phase or the exponential phase of the microorganisms, or it is produced at the stationary phase. So some of these examples that are there is the ethanol, citric acid, vitamins, acetone, butanol, lysine, that is the amino acids, and so on. Then, so this is the second was the microbial enzymes, and the third was the microbial metabolites. Now, the fourth is another interesting type of these products. So, some of the products, suppose some of the microorganisms, what it does is it converts a particular compound which is present in the fermenter. Okay, a particular compound is added in a fermented system, and what it does, it modifies this particular compound into some value-added product. Okay, so in those type of fermentations, these type of fermentations are also known as the transformation processes. So where we add your targeted product, desired compound, and that product is somehow converted into your targeted product. Okay, and so how do you select which compound can be converted? Okay, so you have for that selection of that particular compound, you have to go through the biochemical pathway of that particular microorganisms, and from that you have to find out that which compound can participate in the fermentation process, and you can add that particular compound, or you can add a precursor of the compound. Okay, and that particular compound will be converted into some desired product or some sort of a product which is having a value addition. So some of these examples are the steroids, antibiotics, and the prostaglandins. So these are some of the most of these medicinal molecules. Okay, which are suppose if you see the structure of the antibiotics, structure of these steroids, they are generally very large molecular, high molecular weight molecules with a complex structure, for example. So to get a particular, suppose the modifications in a particular site, okay, you means by through the chemical process, it is very difficult. Okay, so in that type of for that type of transformations of that biomolecules, you use in this type of processes where you add it as a compound, as a derivative compound in a fermentation, and then it is converted into your targeted product. So we will look into those examples of the steroids. How do we get the steroids and some sort of antibiotics, especially for example the penicillin. We will look into the example how the additive for a precursor of the penicillin is converted into a desired product. So this is what the different types of the products that are produced from any particular process, fermentation process. So it can be directly the cells, or it can be some of the products which is extracted or released by the cells, and that is either released outside the cell or it is produced by the cell and it is stored within the cell, like the intracellular or the extracellular, and it can be like the microbial enzymes, okay, or the microbial metabolites. And in these metabolites, we already have seen there are two types: the primary metabolites and the secondary metabolites. Okay, and then there is another fourth type which is completely different, where it converts a particular compound that is added to the fermentation and it converts into a your targeted product. So these are the four types of the fermented products. And next, we will look into what is the chronological development of the fermentation. So means how with the time on that as I discussed, like in the pre 1900, from then to 1900 to 1940 and to 1970 to till date, how the fermentation technology has developed. Okay, and then we will also look into that how what is the development in the means how the fermentation production has been shifted from the alcohol fermentations to the production of suppose the monoclonal antibodies and now for example the vaccines as such. So how the high value, you will see that the products that are developed have shifted from the low value, high volume to the high value, low volume products. Okay. And then we will see in that case, means the, suppose the vessels or the reactors, how the initially traditional vessels were used, and then how we developed the complex bioreactors. So and how it led to the improve in the productivity and the yield of the product. And then we will see the control system, like initially it was mostly manually controlled, and how the control systems were developed, where the fermentation or bioreactors are attached with the different sensors and they are controlled by a particular control systems. Okay, and then we'll see the what are different culture methods. So generally there are three types like batch, fed batch, and continuous or perfusion based bioreactors. So we will see those type of bioreactors and the culture methods and the quality control. So how the whenever you are producing any particular product from the fermentation, how the quality of that is controlled and how it is scaled up at a pilot scale. And then there is another important component of this fermentation is the strain selection. So when you are doing the fermentation, for example, you have to select the strain. So like I have talked in the last slide, that you might have a natural strain, or you have a genetically engineered strain, or you might have a metabolically engineered pathways. So there are several strategies and technologies and development in the science that is taking place where we can engineer completely. Means, if you see the recent research that is going on, we can actually engineer microorganisms in any different way, and we can produce any type of biochemical products actually. However, the yield and the purity of the product is one of the major concern. But till date, if you find the technological development that has been done, actually any desired products, any desired chemicals, we can try to do. But their scalability in the industrial scale, how to select which process. So we will look into this in the details in our coming classes. So you can see we will be understanding in the both horizontal stage as well as the vertical that how the so these are the this will be main topics of our discussion in our subsequent classes. Each and every topic like what are the bioreactor types, design, how the process is controlled, how the automation is brought in, what are different culture method, how the strain is developed to the industrial strain and so on. So we will just in today's class briefly look at how it has been advancements has taken place. So if you see in the pre-1900, most of the fermentation that is being carried out were based on the alcohol fermentation and the vinegar. Okay, so these were the mainly food products. Okay, that was used, and the alcohols, if you have seen in most of the documentaries or if you in the movies, for example, they were produced also till date. Also, some of the alcohol fermentation is still that carried out in the wooden barrels. Okay, so large wooden barrels so for example, 1500 barrel capacities, they were used for the alcohol production. And if you see in the case of the other the vinegars and all those things, they were using a particular type of reactor which is called trickling filters. Okay, so shallow trace and trickling filters. So trickling filters is nothing but it is a type of a reactor. So if you see a trickling filter reactor, so it is like in the if you have, it is a big chamber, and in between we have a some sort of a mesh like immobilized structure. So in this particular mesh like structure, what is happened? The particular microorganisms are immobilized. Okay, and your particular source, for example, if you are using glucose medium or any other agriculture source, is actually sprayed or filtered on the top or sprayed on the top of this bioreactor. And what happens? This, for example, the glucose solution actually tickles down this bed, and as it tickles down this bed, it comes into contact with the immobilized microorganisms, and that microorganisms, for example, converts the glucose to the citric acid or the acetic acid. Okay, and that gets collected at the bottom, and then it goes into the purification stages and so on. So this is a basic diagram for the trickling filter bioreactor systems. And most of the production of the vinegars, the acetic acid or the citric acids are generally carried out with this type of bioreactors. So what does means what is the advantage if you see if you have this type of immobilized system in the sensor in the center where you can immobilize the microbes, what happens? The washout of the cells means if this particular when the liquid is flowing from the top to the bottom, the washout of the cells are reduced. Okay, if you see in the compared to the traditional processes. So we look into the different reactor system, but I just discussed the sticking filters and which is being used for the vinegar. So can anyone of you tell? Everyone can see these diagrams and everything, right? What I am writing, is it visible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So so this is how in the pre 1900 era we had mostly the wooden barrels and this type of very primitive type of reactor systems for the vinegar production. And if you see the process control, so as I already told that when you are using a bioreactor, you need to control the temperature, pH, the ionic strength, and so many parameters are there. So for example, they used to have the hydrometers, thermometers, and the heat exchangers. So those type of process controls were there, but in this they were all manually controlled. Okay, so because for example you need to maintain the temperature inside, so you have to have a for example a jacketed system in which the efficient heat means you have to control the temperature of that reactor using a jacketed fluid or something like that. Okay, so we had that this type of heat exchangers which can efficiently maintain the temperature within the reactor systems. And most of this culture method was a batch type. So and if you I think everyone knows what is a batch type culture and the fed batch type. So we will discuss what is the difference of the batch, fed batch, and the perfusion or the continuous process. And if you see the quality control, it was not controlled, and pilot run facilities were not there. And if you see the strain selection, so how the strains were selected? So natural microorganisms which are known to produce the alcohols or which are known to produce the vinegars are were used. So they were the pure yeast cultures, for example. Okay, and for example, the fermentations were inoculated with the good vinegar. So that means the in this case we they used to take the very pure microwave culture with the yeast or the bacteria, and they were inoculated within these bioreactor systems, and the desired product like alcohol and the vinegar were produced. So it was a very primitive way of doing the fermentation. But if you see in the 1900 to 1940, the product range were extended. Okay, so we were having now the baker's yeast, glycerol, citric acid, lactic acid, and acetone and butanol. So if you see the acetone and butanol, they were being supplied to the chemical industries. Okay, means they were being supplied to the chemical industries for the production of different other chemical products. And then we had the lactic acid and citric acid production, also glycerol production. Okay, and the bakeries productions which were into the bakery industry. So if you see the vessels or the reactors, they were having, for example, the steel vessels were used. Okay, and then along with that, we used the ear spudgers. Okay, and we had the mechanical stirring in the small vessels. So what is the advantages of using the stirring and ear spudgers? So stirring actually helps in mixing the media component. So if you see a particular, for example, a bioreactor, so it consists of so if you see a particular bioreactor, it consists of, in the case of the batch type reactor, so it consists of an impeller. So if you see for example, the yellow colored solution, this is nothing but the initial growth media or the production media. Okay, and that it contains the different nutrients, carbon sources, micronutrients. So we will see that how we are going to decide what type of nutrients or what type of chemicals or compounds we are going to add in a growth media composition. So we need in that growth in the batch type of reactors, we have all these growth media components added together in one time, and then we add our inoculum. Inoculum means a small fraction of the microorganisms are inoculated into this bioreactor, and to have the uniform mixing of these microbial organisms with the growth media components, we use the impellers. So we have a different design and structure of the impellers. So this impellers rotates, okay, and it mixes the microorganisms with the growth media, and depending upon the impeller speed, okay, so the mixing and the fluid behavior is actually changing. Now, some of the bioreactors also have that we talked about, that it needs to maintains the temperature. So in this type of bioreactor, most of the bioreactors are jacketed type. So where the hot or cold fluid is being continuously passed through this jacket to maintain the temperature within the bioreactor. Okay, and as these walls get heated, so there are several concept of heat transfer is there. Okay, as the walls get heated, the heat is passed from these solid walls to the growth media, and then growth media to the microorganisms. That is required for the efficient growth of these microorganisms. And to have that efficient transfer of the heat, we have this type of impellers. So we need to understand what is the heat transfer that is going uh, across these jacketed systems, and how it is being efficiently improved. The heat transfer should be improved by using a particular impeller system. Now, along with this thing, some of the microorganisms require, for example, the oxygen or the air for their growth. So, some of the bioreactors, they have a additional component which is called the agitator or the aerator. So, this agitator aerator is placed just below the impeller, and the oxygen bubbles are actually, for example, are passed through the bottom of this bioreactor. Okay, and as it goes up, it comes in contact with this impeller, which is continuously moving, and it actually efficiently distributes these oxygen bubbles so that the oxygen can be uniformly dispersed within the bioreactor. So, means when you are looking into this dispersion of the oxygen into this liquid growth media culture, you can see there is a transfer of gas, the oxygen gas or the air from the gaseous phase to the liquid phase. Okay, so liquid phase is nothing but the growth media component. So here it comes the concept of the mass transfer. So what is the mass transfer of the soluble oxygen to the liquid, that is the growth media component. So this comes into the picture. So in this type of bioreactors, generally in this during this 1940, people understood the importance of the air purges, okay, and the mechanical stirring. So they understood the effectiveness of the heat and mass transfer, and they designed the bioreactors which can effectively uh, means maintain a proper temperature and proper aeration environment or oxygen environment which is required for the growth of these microorganisms. And if you see the process control, we have the pH electrodes and the temperature control, but they were offline. So what does the offline means? That means we have those electrodes and the sensors that developed. Okay, so in the case of bioreactors, we generally have different sensors or that ports are there. So we have the sensors inserted, okay, which comes in the fluid and continuously in the real time, some of the parameters like temperature and pHs are measured. Okay, but in this case, offline monitoring was carried out. So whatever the sensors that were attached with the bioreactor, the values were read in the real time, and the operator who is working, they would manually control that. Okay. So the culture method, if you see, were mostly on the batch type, and some advancements in the fed batch type systems were developed. Now, here, as I talked about the batch. So in the case of the batch, what is happening? We have all the inoculum, the bacteria, the microorganisms, the growth media, all are added in one time. Okay, and the fermentation is started. Okay, but in the case of the fed batch, what is happening? Because some of the microorganisms are tolerant to the, for example, the substrate that is being used. So, for example, let me take an example and tell you. For example, in the growth media component, you have one of the main component as a carbon source called the glucose, and you add the glucose, for example, 20 grams, okay, per liter. But there are some bacteria, okay, which cannot tolerate this high concentration of the glucose. So for that particular bacteria, for example, bacteria X, it cannot grow above the means if the glucose concentration is above 5 gram per liter, it cannot grow. It is toxic to that particular bacteria. Okay, so for that type of culture, microorganism, if you want to grow that type of microorganisms in a bioreactor system, you will be requiring a bioreactor which is having the fed batch. So what is a fed batch system? In this particular fed batch system, what is done? And the concentration of the one of the nutrient, for example, the carbon source, are kept constant. Okay, so how is it kept constant? So first of all, what is happening, for example, in this batch type fermentation, if you start with the 20-gram glucose concentration at suppose time t is equal to 0, okay, and you carry out the fermentation. So what will happen? Suppose at time t is equal to 0, you have the fermentation going and you have initial concentration of the 20 gram per liter glucose. Okay, so what is happening with the time, the concentration of the glucose is going to go down because the bacteria will actually consume the glucose and it will convert into your product. So in the case of the fed batch, it is what it is done that if suppose that 5 gram per liter is the maximum concentration that the particular microbes will able to tolerate. So to make that feasible, the growth media component is actually continuously fed into the bioreactor in such a way that overall concentration of the glucose does not exceeds this 5 gram per liter value. Okay. So in this case, what is happening? We initially start with, for example, the glucose concentration of 5 grams per liter, and we have, for example, the particular sensor probes which can monitor the glucose concentration. Okay, and what it does is, once suppose it has gone down to 4.5 per liter, as for example the bacteria is consuming the glucose, what will it will do is this will be sensed by the by this glucose sensor, and there is particular, for example, a tank in from which we have the growth media component. So it will connect. It is connected to that sensor is connected to that particular tank, and once, for example, it is reaching to 4.5 liter, a particular amount of the glucose solution will be fed back into this bioreactor to make the concentration of this glucose back to the 5 grams per liter. So in this case, what is happening? The glucose media or the your growth media is continuously added to the fermentation or to the fermenter. So in this type of processes where we are adding the growth media components continuously is called the fed batch process. Okay. And then there is another type of process which is called perfusion, or it's some sort of a continuous process in which whatever the product. So here, what is happening? The substrate is, so here we have the substrate that is toxic to the microorganisms. Okay, and in the case of the perfusion, what happens if suppose the product that is being produced, okay, is suppose toxic to the microorganism. Okay, so in that case, whatever the products that are being produced. So in the case of the fed batch, the product that is being produced is inside the fermenter. It is not taken out continuously. But in the case of the continuous type of reactor, the whatever the product is being produced is actually taken out. Okay, and that product is being, for example, so when you're taking out any product from the bioreactor, it will have what it will have the substrate. Okay, so it will have, as I have discussed in the earlier class, it will have the substrate, then it will have the cells, that is the biomass, and it will have the products, right? So you need to have some sort of unit operation, suppose the filtration to remove the product. So here you will want to remove the product, and whatever the substrate and the biomass is there, you are going to pass it back to the microorganism, because that biomass is again going to produce that particular product in the fermenter. So in those type of fermentation systems where we are continuously, suppose, adding the substrate, okay, and you are continuously taking the product out. Okay, so this type of fermentation system is called the continuous or the perfusion type of the bioreactors. Okay, so anyone has any questions or doubts? Anyone? So if you see, these are the main three types of the bioreactors that are there. The first type is the batch type, the second is the fed batch, and the third is the perfusion type of bioreactors. And you can see that initially that fermentation started with the batch type, and then it came in development with the fed batch, and then slowly the perfusion types of fermentation were carried out. But until 1940, even till 1940, it was found that pure cultures were used, because until then the genetic engineering or the recombinant DNA technology was not developed as such. But after the 1940, our fermentation shifted to the other types of products like the penicillin, streptomycin. So these are nothing but the antibiotics. Okay, then we have the gibberellins, amino acids, gibberellins like some sort of hormones, nucleotides, some of the enzymes, okay, and so on. So in that case, we have the vessels which were actually mechanically aerated, okay, and along with the mechanical aeration, so one of the very important thing that came into the picture during this era was that operation at aseptically. So that means till date, because people were using the natural stains, so the concept of the sterilization and all those things was not much followed strictly. And however, during this time, it was found that if the fermentations are carried out under completely aseptic conditions or the sterilized conditions, then the overall yield and the quality of the products are improved. So during that, what happens? So the different sensors that are attached, like the temperature sensor or the pH sensor, so all these components were meant to be autoclaved or meant to be sterilized. Okay. So similarly, the development of the sensor technology was developed, in which sterilizable pH and the oxygen electrodes were developed. Okay. So before that, before 1940, if you want to maintain a sterile condition, it was not possible, because such technology of pH sensors and the oxygen sensors, temperature sensors were not there. But after 1940, the technological development in this type of sensors, which can be sterilizable, okay, and were developed. And why means it was an issue, because when you are doing the sterilization, suppose you are doing an autoclaving, So you need to have a temperature, you know that it is around 121 degrees Celsius. Okay, and you have to maintain, for example, a pressure of 15 psi. So the sensor should able to withstand this high temperature as well as the high pressure, and as well as means whenever you are going to do a fermentation process, you are going to always sterilize the bioreactor. And after the fermentation process, also you are going to sterilize everything. So it should be means when you are designing a bioreactor, it is supposed to work for suppose 10 years, 20 years down the line. So multiple cycles of this sterilization and autoclaving will be carried out. So your sensor should be capable enough to withstand this high temperature and the pressure for the longer duration of the time. Okay, and if you see the culture method, mostly fed batch and the batch was used. However, the continuous culture that we just discussed were actually introduced in the brewing industries, like in the alcohol fermentation process, and some of the primary metabolites productions, or some of the examples that we already have seen in the earlier classes, were used. Then came the quality control. So quality control, some rules and guidelines were developed, and the quality control processes become very important. And yeah, the pilot plant facilities were now developed. So there was scaling up from the small scale processes to the pilot plant processes. And then if you see the strain selection, the mutation was carried out. So we will see what are different types of mutations and how you can do a mutation in a particular microorganisms. So the mutation of this particular microorganism and then selection of an appropriate target microorganisms were developed. Okay, in which you can increase the yield and the productivity of that particular microorganism bacteria as such. So in today's class, we will keep our discussion until this, and then in the next class, we will just discuss on the next 2 points, and then we will start on that what are the strain selection programs and what is the difference between the different strains and how we can develop a genetically engineered strain or a mutated strain and select them for the production of any biotech. So anyone any questions or doubts till now? Anyone? If not, so I have actually uploaded the lecture slides, okay, for the last few classes. So everyone should go through the slides today, okay, and we will. So if you have, and the password is BC312 underscore PD. So BC312 is the course code and underscore PD. So if you want to open the slides, use this particular password, okay, and everyone should go through the slides, okay. And let us meet in the tomorrow's class. Anyone has any other questions or anything? If not, so thank you everyone. Let us meet in tomorrow's class.